This panel is being conducted as a part of the India-Israel Partnership Program, and I'm excited to welcome the dignitaries and speakers who shall be talking to us today. We have with us Mr. Yaakov Finkelstein, Israel Consul General in Mumbai, Ms. Hedva Kleinhandler, founder Emerge, and other GUSEC and UNICEF officials. I now invite Rahul Bakchandani, Group CEO, GUSEC, to give his opening remarks.
Thank you, Rebecca. It is so good to be on this panel as part of the Her Start Summit that we've organized as part of our Her Start platform of GUSEC and Gujarat University. It is so good to see Mr. Yaakov Finkelstein today with us, joining from Mumbai, and Ms. Hedva Kleinhandler, who has joined us straight from Israel. Thank you, Yaakov and Hedva, for taking out the time to join us as part of the Her Start Summit, which is a flagship international conference of women leaders that Gujarat University Startup and Entrepreneurship Council has organized with the support of the state government of Gujarat, Government of India, UNICEF, and Yuva Generation Unlimited of UNICEF. GU has been the oldest and the largest university of the state of Gujarat, and GUSEC has been a pioneering initiative of Gujarat University, established in 2016, and we recently concluded 5 years of our establishment. Over the last few years, Gujarat University Startup and Entrepreneurship Council, GUSEC, has undertaken various flagship initiatives to bring in various stakeholders together to encourage entrepreneurship, innovation, startups, work with innovative minds and give them the platform that they need to strive. In the national rankings of startup states as issued by the Government of India, Gujarat has emerged the #1 startup state 2 times in a row. And I'm pleased to share that Gujarat University is the torchbearer of startup and innovation activities here in Gujarat, which is the #1 startup destination for startups in India. We have undertaken various initiatives to bring the ecosystem together. To that effect, we have been able to support more than 300 startups that we have incubated in the last 3 to 4 years. Our startups have created almost 1,500 jobs in the last couple of years and revenues of over 25 crores. I'm also very pleased to report that almost 50 startups that are currently incubated at GUSEC are women-led startups. Promoting women entrepreneurship, women innovation, working with women founders to encourage participation of women into the Indian workforce is a very important priority for us. We know that 50% of the population in India is constituted by women, and with such a beautiful growth story that this country is scripting at this point, it is exceptionally important that women in India are encouraged, nurtured, and supported to enter the workforce, become job creators, become innovators. Her Start is our small initiative to that effect. Last year, when we did Her Start, we saw the emergence of 35 women-led startups. I was very pleased to have the support of the Israel Consul General in Mumbai during the last summit as well. This year, we are pleased to have done this panel as part of the Her Start Summit with the Consul General and the Consulate. 3 years ago, I had a wonderful opportunity to visit Israel, thanks to the courtesy of the Foreign Ministry and the Consul General in Mumbai. And I was so impressed and so amazed by the culture, by the activities, such a small nation and a small population doing some wonderful, amazing, out-of-the-world things. I was also incredibly impressed at how little do we know about how much of a cultural similarity that Israel and India have. I was amazed by the warmth of the people showered towards us across the country, and the food. I can do a webinar on the amazing food of Israel as a separate topic. And there are so many other similarities between our people in India and the people in Israel. And to top that, Israel and India share such a beautiful relationship, of course, but Gujarat and Israel share an even better positive relationship. We've had the opportunity to host the Prime Minister of Israel. Our Honorable Chief Minister has been visiting, has made Israel visit a couple of years ago, being his first foreign visit. And there have been numerous partnerships that Gujarat and Israel have taken through the embassy, through the consulate. And given that entrepreneurship is such a core aspect of the Gujarati people here in Gujarat, it is in our DNA, and innovation being such an important aspect of the Israeli society, the partnership is quite natural. The partnership is quite complementary. And I'm only pleased that through this summit, we are getting an opportunity to listen to Ms. Hedwa today. I've had the opportunity to read her bio, and I would like to thank the team of the consulate in Mumbai to have made this possible. Hedwa, I would encourage you to talk about your challenges, your journey. And we have today been connected by so many aspiring women entrepreneurs. Almost 1,000 registrations for this summit, and a wonderful participation by people here in India. Aspiring entrepreneurs, students, faculty members, startups, stakeholders. And they would love to hear from you the various challenges you faced and how you overcome them. And of course, we would love to hear Mr. Yakov, his remarks. To conclude, I would say that we've been working in various ways, and I only hope that we are able to take this partnership between Gujarat University and Israel and India forward to bring our synergies together and work together to support entrepreneurs, startups, innovators, and all other stakeholders who wish to contribute to this great mission of ours, to be innovative, to be entrepreneurial, to be job creators. And with that note, I would ask Rebecca to continue with the program. Thank you so much. Rebecca, you're on mute.
Apologies. Taking the program ahead, I would now like to introduce Mr. Yakov Finkelstein, Israel's Consul General in Mumbai. Mr. Yakov Finkelstein has been serving as the Consul General for Israel in Mumbai since 2017. A former officer in the Israeli Defense Forces, Mr. Finkelstein has held various positions for the Israel Foreign Ministry in various countries, including Moldova, Azerbaijan, Poland, and South Africa. He holds a master's degree in international relations from Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Please join me in inviting Mr. Yakov Finkelstein to deliver his address.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the kind introduction, and namaste also to our dear friend Rahulji, and a hearty shalom, and welcome to Ms. Hedva Kleinhandel for joining us from Israel, and of course to all the viewers. Rebecca, I think the most important detail in this context of my biography that you forgot is that I'm married to Nurit, the wife who has been with me for over 19 years, hopping from one mission to the other around the world. And trust me, being a diplomat's spouse is not an easy job. So I'd like to mention that, and congratulations, and say in Hebrew, Mazal Tov, happy birthday to GUSEC on your 5th birthday, and to all the women on international Women's Day. I must say that this way of celebrating Women's Day, I think, is much better. It's much a nicer gift that you can give all the people, especially the women who are listening to us now, rather than the traditional hamper with cosmetics and lotions that only fortify the stereotype about women on their very day. So I'm very happy to be here and continue the cooperation with GUSEC as of years before. In the few minutes that I have, I would like just to go through few main leading women in our history. Rahul mentioned that we are a very small nation, but we are also a very ancient one, with over 4,000, maybe even 5,000 years of history. We've just recently signed the Abrahamic Accord, right, with the countries in the Gulf, corresponding to Abraham, the patriarch, the father of our nation. Well, he to begin with was married to a very dominant woman called Sarah. And so I start my presentation from that time on till our very day, and I would like to focus about one woman specifically in our current history in Israel, and also the connection to India, the Indian context. So without further ado, if I can share the screen and we can see the presentation. Right, next. So, as I said, along the history, from our very inception, we had prominent women leaders. One of them is Miriam, the sister of Moses. Everybody knows about the biblical Moses, but his sister actually guarded him when he was still a baby. And also later on, as you can see in this beautiful painting, she was leading the women after the exodus from Egypt in dancing and singing, and she was also a very great prophet. Later on, we had Deborah and a few other prophets. Deborah was especially known because the then military leader of Israel, Barak, son of Abinoam, came to her to ask her guidance in the war against the Canaanites. And she told him, okay, I'll give you the blessing, I will help you, but you should know that the victory will be in the hands of the woman and not in your hands. That was the prophecy. It was not. That was another woman, Yael, who got the victory. But Deborah was a very prominent prophet. Later on, we had Ruth of Moab. She was actually the great grandmother of King David, who is the greatest, considered the greatest of the Jewish kings so far. She was also a very special woman. She had the book of herself, the book of Ruth in the Bible. Queen Salome on the time of the Roman Empire was a very powerful woman. After her husband the king died, she married his brother Alexander, and they actually she was very let's put it actively involved in the intrigues of the court of the Jewish court in Jerusalem. And beyond, very influential woman. We call her Shlom Tzion. She's known as Queen Salome of Jerusalem. And this is one woman that is worth mentioning, Donna Gracia, or Donna Gracia, as we call her, Nasi. She was a wife of a very rich merchant, but soon after he died, she actually got control of their merchandise empire, which included mainly importing and exporting of spices in a trade, by the way, that got her ships also as far as India. In the next slide, you can see a few of the things that she did besides developing the family business all over Europe and Byzantium at the time, yes, from Lisbon, where she started, to Antwerp, to Venice, Italy, and Istanbul. Very, very rich and powerful lady. She was corresponding with the Pope, with the Turkish Sultan and other princes in Europe. She developed a whole net of a network to help converted Jews escape from Spain and Portugal. As you know, in the 16th century, the Spanish Inquisition and the Portuguese one persecuted Jews, forced them to convert, but they kept their religion in secret. She was also a converso or Marranos herself. And she developed this whole operation where she managed to sneak them out on her ships from Spain and Portugal through the Alps to Europe, and later on even to Israel, Palestine at the time, with the help of the Sultan. She gave a lot of money to build synagogues and Jewish schools, especially for these Marranos to regain the Jewish education. She was involved in printing of Jewish books in a time, mind you, when printing was very complicated, costly, and rare. And one of the most interesting things she did, she got a deal with the Turkish Sultan, Suleiman the Magnificent, to give her Tiberia, the city of Tiberia, on the Sea of Galilee, and basically to develop it. Tiberia at the time was just a province, very backward province in the fringe of the Turkish Empire, and she spotted this area with a potential to resettle those Marranos that she got from Europe, and also the whole Jewish community that was there since time immemorial. She invested money, made plans, and actually was the developer of the whole city, which now also flourishes in Israel, the city of Tiberia. She was in the last few decades recognized by many organizations and countries for her deed. She was active in Europe, in Turkey, and in Israel. This is an example of a coin that you see that was coined by the Israeli government in her memory, in appreciation of this great philanthropist of the 16th century. Sarah Aronson, the hero of the Mili underground, she was part of an underground of spies who wanted to help the Brits against the Turks, against the Ottoman Empire in the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. I think every child in Israel read the book about Sarah, the hero of Mili. Another very interesting woman is Henrietta Sold. She is the founder of Hadassah. Hadassah basically is was a Zionist women organization, but concentrated on health. Today, you know, Hadassah Hospital in Israel. She was the founder, the first president of this hospital, also eventually passed away on that very hospital. But she laid the foundation for all today's Israel national healthcare system. And she was also very much involved in what we call the Aliyat HaNor, the immigration of youth after the Holocaust, immigration of Jewish youth to Israel after the Holocaust in illegal ways because we were under British mandate. She had this organization. Later on, after the foundation of the state, she was a co-partner with founding a political party also called Likud. They didn't do very well. She had a kibbutz, Kfar Sol, named after Israel. Very, very influential woman. And also Mother's Day in Israel, the Israeli Mother's Day is marked on her birthday in honor of her special activity with children. So this is a lady that I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, know, and I want to elaborate about her. Ms. Golda Meir, our Prime Minister, our fourth Prime Minister back in the 1970s. She was the third woman Prime Minister in the world at that time, along with another powerful lady, Indira Gandhi. I chose this photograph of her because this is very typical of her. She was a very heavy smoker. Eventually died of cancer, but she was considered an iron lady. She also grew up in America and immigrated to Israel on her own, started her own life, fought her way to the top, became a minister a few times and eventually a prime minister. You see she's also commemorated on the 10 shekels notes and coins. And besides being a very powerful lady, Golda Meir had a vision that had impact around the world, including in India, to this very day. Back in the 90s, 60s, or even 50s, when Israel was still in its very early stages, struggling with lots of challenges, security challenges, economical challenges, waves of immigration from all over the world that the small country had to absorb. She decided that we establish the Israeli National Cooperation Center, which is called in Hebrew Mashav. And this is a branch that helps to spread and share the knowledge and know-how of Israelis with their fellow countries around the world, especially in Africa and Asia. Specifically, it started with agriculture and water technologies. Israel had very scarce water, so we developed irrigation system and different methods, desalination. And she said, let's share this knowledge with our friends around the world and uplift this world together. Also, hopefully, to get political support in return to this investment. And look at this map. This is a map of the Israeli Centers of Excellence in India. So, as part of this Mashav program, we have in India 29 Centers of Excellence of Israeli agriculture. And this number is still growing. We have centers for mangoes, for dates, for vegetables, for mandarins, etc., where we use the Israeli technology and know-how. We have Indian trainers in the centers, and Indian villagers and farmers come from all over the area. You can see it spread practically all over India. We developed the eastern side. And farmers from the area can come and learn, they can get guidance, and they can get help, and to help them get better crop, more crop, advanced systems. Some of them are very sophisticated, some of them are more simple and less costly, which are suitable for the small farmers, and it's a great success. In this next few years, we are going to enlarge the program from centers of excellence to villages of excellence. So the villages in the surrounding, in the vicinity of these centers will be part of a greater program, like in a way, if you want, the Israeli kibbutz, which is a cooperative system that supports the members in not only agriculture, but it's like a holistic approach. And we have a full-fledged representative of Mashav, an agricultural expert who's sitting in our embassy in Delhi. And this all started with a vision of this lady, Golda Meir, in Israel some over 60 years ago. Next. One activity that we do with the help of Mashav is supporting not only agriculture, but also seminars online and in Israel. People come over the world and they train them. There's women empowerment, small medium enterprises, education, as I said, entrepreneurship, fishery, water methodologies. Practically slide, you see a center that was opened in the slums of Mumbai with an organization called Oscar and the help of the consulate in Mashav. And now there are, I think, hundreds, at least at the beginning, a few dozens, but there's going to be hundreds of children from the slums of Mumbai who have the accessibility to computers in this beautiful little center, and also the guidance, because they don't need only the computer, they need also someone to guide them and to teach them computer skills. And this is, once they have this skill, this can be the change for breaking this circle of poverty and maybe help them find work and better life and career in the future. So this also has been done with the contribution of Mashav, again started with Golda Meir some 60 years ago. I can go on and on and on, but I'll just give you in a small mosaic few other influential ladies along our history. You can see we have supreme judges, we have Nobel...
Sorry to interrupt. I think we have lost your screen, Yaakov. We are not able to see your screen.
Okay, let's try again. Did you see the one with the Oscar with the children and the digital center?
Yeah, we saw the digital center, but nothing after that.
Okay. So just to conclude, will give you a very small and representative mosaic of other influential ladies in Israeli history. We have judges, we have scientists, we have very high officer generals in the Israeli army, we have sportswomen, Olympic medalists, and of course, I think the last one doesn't need any introduction. We have Ms. Gal Gadot, but I would like to say that for us, I think each and every woman can be and is a Wonder Woman. So thank you very much, and I'm keen to hear also Ms. Hedva Kleinhandler, your inputs. Thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you for your wonderful insights, Mr. Yaakov. I'm now delighted to introduce Ms. Hedva Kleinhandler, founder, Emerge. Ms. Hedva Kleinhandler is the CEO of Rooms and Words, a marketing and strategy consulting agency and a future of work expert. Previously, Ms. Hedva was co-founder of and CEO of Emerge, an award-winning startup which brought micro-mentoring to Fortune 500 companies like Facebook, Siemens, and more. She is passionate about the future of learning, diversity, and career growth. Ms. Hedva's work has been featured on Thrive Global, Huffington Post, Wired, the BBC, and more. Please join me in inviting Ms. Hedva Kleinhandler to present her keynote address.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here on this important day. And thank you so much, Raul, Rebecca, and of course, Mr. Consul, Mr. Yaakov Finkelstein, for inviting me. It's a very good week to be a woman entrepreneur in Israel. You probably haven't heard about this, but actually someone that I'm very proud to call a friend of mine, Einat Gez, just raised a round of funding that made her the first woman founder of a unicorn in Israel. So to whomever doesn't know what a unicorn is, in high-tech and technology startups, when we talk about unicorns, it's a startup that is worth over $1 billion. And Einat has raised this sum and grew her company, Papaya Global, in the last 4 years while having 3 children. She's a mom and an entrepreneur. So I think this International Women's Day is especially meaningful and important for women, and especially in technology in Israel. And I think it's such a big opportunity and really battle cry or just wishful thing that happens that could really open the horizons of so many other women and other diverse entrepreneurs all over the world. So I really loved seeing the Consul's presentation of powerful women in Jewish and Israeli history. It's such a powerful reminder of our history and where we come from. And I think many times when I think about women's history, we only think about the oppression and maybe victimhood and maybe what wasn't, the opportunities that weren't afforded to women. But it's so important to also know that we come from such powerful heritage, and we could really look back in history. And I know the same is also in Indian history, and not only look forward, but also take inspiration from the past. In this talk, which again, thank you so much for having me, I will try to share a little bit of my story. So I don't have a presentation. I will share a little bit of my past, what brought me to my entrepreneurial path. And if we'll have a little time in the end, I'll be happy to also take questions if anyone is interested. So really nice to be here. My name is Hedva, and I was born in New York. I grew up between the observant Jewish, so religious community in Brooklyn in New York, and later when I was 3 or 4, my family moved to Israel. The town I grew up in is called Mcgrath. It's a very small town, but very populated. It has over 100,000 people. Over 50% of them are children, who are younger than 19. And it's very different in the ecosystem of Israel, with the entire population of the town being ultra-Orthodox. So only eating kosher food, not working or not being connected to anything digital over the Shabbat from Friday afternoon to Saturday night. And many of my community are also, have ambivalent relationships with the workforce and in general, and with technology specifically. So for me, when I grew up, my family was more came a lot from the United States and from the United Kingdom, and most of the women, actually only one woman worked outside the home. All the women were homemakers, including my mother. And when I grew up, I had the amazing opportunity to grow as a first child in an amazing family that was very intellectual, and I've been made to feel like I could do everything in the world. But then when talking about specific prospects in the career world, my parents were worried for me. They said, "You're not used to that. You don't know how it is to work outside the home. Who will you marry?" Etc. It was a very different situation in my community, and I wanna say it. I want to stress that it's not in the entire religious community. There are actually a lot of women who are the breadwinners when the men are learning Torah. They're learning the ancient scripts of the Jewish religion, but in my specific community, that was the thing. And to be honest, while I was always very ambitious and always knew that I wanted to make a career for myself, I never thought about technology. I didn't have access to much technology as a child. It wasn't really an option that was discussed. And the thing that I knew about myself is that I love to write and read. I thought I will be an author one day. So after I got married at 18, I went to school and I actually studied translation. I became a translator of English books and TV subtitles into Hebrew, and it did raise a few eyebrows in my environment, but it was pretty much under the radar. One of the amazing things that I discovered soon after, while I was a translator, is that I got a computer with internet connection in my home. It was 2004, and I looked for inspiration to decorating my house, just because we moved to a new house, and I was very into design. And suddenly, from thinking about technology like something that is for geeks, that is super complicated, that is only for people who love math, I discovered an entire world of people who were like-minded, who were just like me, who loved design, who loved books, and it didn't matter if they were in Israel or in the United States or in Serbia or in Denmark or in India. We could really connect and become friends. Suddenly I understood that technology, more than anything else, it's really a window to connect with other people. And that was something that I really was very excited and passionate by, and I started exploring. In 2010, I started my first, actually not my first, but one of my first blogs. It was called Rooms and Words, just like my business today. And it was all about interior design. I didn't try to talk about myself as an expert or to give any tips. I just was another person on the internet who was looking for ideas to design. And something amazing happened. Suddenly, designers that I admired and design authors that I admired started reaching out to me, sending me their books, telling me thanks for quoting them or linking to their websites. And very soon, I was approached by platforms like Etsy and like House to be one of their first freelancers and to collaborate with them on projects. this collaboration with House was actually my first foray into real technology, into startups. I didn't know then, but House was a startup that was started by an Israeli couple in the Silicon Valley in California, exactly for people like me who wanted to design their house and didn't know how. So I started writing for them, and from those small pieces, I started building my marketing business, and getting more and more clients and helping them with my platform reach audiences across the world who wanted to buy from them. So back then, it was a lifestyle entrepreneurship. I didn't even think about being a tech entrepreneur, raising money from investors, knowing people who became unicorns. That was not on my radar at all. But that was the beginning. And for almost 10 years, this was, for 5 years, this was an amazing business that grew, that was sustainable. I had employees, but I didn't dream much more than that. What did happen, though, was that instead of thinking about myself, I saw the women that I was working with. So many of my clients were designers or owners of design businesses, amazing women who started from corporate jobs or even from tech companies, and somehow around the time that they had children, they felt that they had to forgo that, to give that up and do something else, usually in the lifestyle industry. That really bothered me. And when I started talking with more and more of them and more of my friends, I tried to think, what is it? What is it that is at the core of this, that is making the world of work not understand women or really any diverse worker? In May 2015, I was so fed up with this that I actually created a survey. And the survey had 30 questions, so it was very long and tedious. But I said, okay, I'll just like release it to the world because I need to understand this. I need to do something about this. And the amazing thing was, within a week, more than 500 women from 56 countries answered this survey. Women from Israel and in the United States and the United Kingdom. That was obvious to me. But also women from India, Brazil, Korea, all over the world answered this, told me what are their biggest issues at work, what is holding them back, what are they worried about, and what do they think that could help. When I read their answers, I knew I had to do something about it. And this is how Emerge was born. Together with my amazing co-founder, Hanit, the same woman who actually built my blog for me years before that, we created Emerge. Emerge was an internal platform inside organizations that helped any employee, not only women, but also to get the mentorship and the connections from their employees, from their co-workers, that they could learn from. Eventually, we worked with companies like Facebook, like Siemens, and many others. But on the way, and I'll make this short because I know we don't have a lot of time, while I was trying to help other women and other diverse workers in general, I met myself with so many different lessons, because while I was already an entrepreneur, being a technology entrepreneur is an entirely different thing. For the first time, I had to raise money. I eventually raised around $800,000 from investors in Israel and in the US. This was something for someone who grew in a community where speaking about money, especially for women, is not something that is encouraged at all. That was not easy at all. First of all, there was a mental block for me that I had to go through. But then definitely for investors in Israel and in the US, looking at a woman entrepreneur who is also a little bit different, who keeps Shabbat, who is not on her phone for 25 hours a week, who didn't go to all the top universities, who didn't think about being a technology entrepreneur before, that was a big challenge. And I feel like this was a challenge not only for me, but also for the technology ecosystem. Learning about entrepreneurs who come from different places is definitely a challenge that our ecosystem and our industry are going through. One of the things that were the most inspiring and the most helpful in that regard was being part of an amazing accelerator. Accelerators, for those of you who aren't familiar, are a program where startups can participate and get help and connections in order to accelerate their growth, especially when they're very early stage. There are many, many accelerators. In fact, in Israel, there are, I think, over 100 accelerators. A few years ago, it was 72. But there is one very special accelerator in Israel, and it's called Kamatech. Kamatech was started by Moshe Friedman, who was also a Haredi, that's ultra-Orthodox in Hebrew, entrepreneur. And his startup failed, but he understood that when he is the only Haredi entrepreneur in the room, no investor will know how to even look at him or even if to take them seriously or not. So he created an amazing accelerator where entrepreneurs who are from a religious background sit inside a larger startup or a larger company and get connections from them. So for over 5 months, I was inside Microsoft in Herzliya in Israel and got a lot of support from them. That gave me a huge jump start, and eventually when we presented to investors, the CEO of Facebook in Israel is the one who connected me to their headquarters in Europe and helped me land them as our very first client. Since then, a lot has happened. We grew the company. There is a new generation of Orthodox entrepreneurs, both men and women, in Israel. It's still not that easy, and there's still a long way to go. But I think when investors and corporate leaders in Israel are now met with founders who don't look like them, whether they're ultra-Orthodox, women, Arab, Ethiopian, etc., I think they're more open-minded today than 4 or 5 years ago when we started our way. Unfortunately, during COVID, we had to decide to shut down the company, but it was such a privilege, especially during COVID, to know that people all around the globe are using our platform to connect and get mentorship and get support, especially in those times when everyone is working remotely, and that's more important than ever. Today, I took my learnings from that journey, and beyond starting my marketing agency, which thank you, Rebecca, for talking about, I'm also trying my best to advise startups that are improving the future of work, talking about the future of work in Israel and around the globe, especially in these days of Zoom, and also starting my podcast to discuss with people, entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, investors, etc., how they see the future of work and how they bridge between the world of entrepreneurship, of high ambition, a lot of work, nonstop work, and self-care, and really protecting entrepreneurs from burnout. If we have a few minutes, I'm happy to answer 2 or 3 questions.
Thank you so much, Hebba. We have a question here, and we'll also keep the forum open in case there are people who are interested to ask questions. And I think you should be making most of this opportunity and throw in as many questions as you can. Whatever time we have, I'm sure we would agree to take some of the questions here. Yeah. So I'll read out the first question to you. It says, "What is your advice for today's women who are aspiring to start a business?"
That's a great question. I think, first of all, any business is a business, so business can also be very small. You don't have to start from fundraising and from going in over your head. I think the first thing to remember is that you can do it. You can do whatever anyone else can do. The first, I think, piece of advice that has been crucial for me has been asking for help. I started a business around asking for mentorship, and still it was challenging to learn to ask for help. And I think at every fork in the road, at every step, I again learned how important it is to really reach out to your network. And it doesn't have to be a huge and important network. It could be your friends, your family, the cousin of your cousins, of your neighbor who has once opened a business, and ask for help, or even just present yourself and tell them what you're doing. Maybe they will hear about someone who needs that service, and that's a great way to start.
Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question, Priyanka. Let's see if we have some more questions. All right, our next question's here, and our question is, if you could tell us more about your biggest challenge and how you overcame it.
I think, wow, there were so many challenges. I think one of my biggest challenges with Emerge, specifically with a technology startup where you need to raise money from investors in order to drive growth, was my mental block around raising money. Now, raising money is hard many times for entrepreneurs who are diverse, even if they don't have a mental block, because people from the outside don't necessarily understand them. But for me, in the beginning, I felt like if I'm asking for money from investors, that's how it felt. Like, I'm asking for money, please do me a favor and give me money. And that was something that I was really educated and raised against in my culture. It took me a lot of self-work to understand that I am not asking for anything. I'm not begging for anything. I am selling someone, right? I'm selling them on the opportunity to come and gain and benefit from being part of this successful endeavor. So that was definitely a big challenge. And after overcoming that challenge with myself, I still had to go and understand how to overcome the challenge with investors, which also I think a lot of times, even if you're different, it's definitely more difficult. But if you come with a lot of confidence, that really has a big impact.
Thank you so much for answering that. We have one more question that's come in, which is, being in the unorthodox setting that you found yourself in, how did you keep going? What helped you to sustain your passion?
That is a good question and a tough question. I always, even before Emerge, I always did business in the unorthodox setting, so I was familiar with that, but it was never that high stakes, and it was never that different until I went into startup, into technology, entrepreneurship. And then suddenly it became very weird that I was orthodox, and a lot of people had a lot of bias and prejudice, to be honest. I think one of the biggest things that helped me sustain my passion and my energy were the fact that I didn't start Emerge just to make money. It was definitely a business, and we made money, and we were successful at times. But I started it, first of all, from a vision and a mission to make the world better. And that really helped me. Another thing, which goes back to being orthodox and to being religious, I'm a person who's always connected to her phone 24/7, or 24/6. The fact that every week I have had 25 hours where I'm not connected to the phone or to any other digital device really helped me connect back to myself, to my family, to my values, and remind myself, why am I doing this? So I think that was, even though being religious many times made it more difficult, for me, this was something that made it so much more worth it and so much easier.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I think we've got questions pouring here, Edwa. Please tell us when you get tired. This is enough. Yeah, we've got a lot of questions here. So the other one which is here is, what's your motive to always keep going as you started at a very early age? What keeps you going?
That's such a good question, and that's a question that I really asked myself a lot during COVID. So in the last year, our startup went through so many hurdles, and like I said, we eventually decided, sadly, to close it. I started a new business. I had COVID. My entire family had COVID. So there were a lot of challenges and hurdles, and it made me question a lot. What is keeping me going? Everyone is, is susceptible to burnout. Even entrepreneurs. This is something that is not talked about a lot. Like, more and more people talk about burnout, but in entrepreneurship, it feels like it's almost a taboo to talk about this or anything really that has a connotation of weakness, right, or vulnerability. And I did take some time off in the first lockdown. And first of all, it was very important. I did a lot of yoga. It was very good for me. But what I understood is that I'm not only working outside of having to. Yes, we all have to. We have to make money. We have to have some purpose in life, right? We have to make sure that our kids have nice things. But I feel, for me, working and creating new things, and creativity can come in many, many ways. It could be entrepreneurship. It could be a hobby. For me, that is almost like a childlike curiosity of, let's try something new. Let's try doing something and let's see what happens. And for me, whenever I feel that this creativity and entrepreneurship turns from something fun and curious and childlike into something where you're saying, like on Sunday, oh my gosh, I don't want to go back to work, that is definitely a flag to ask ourselves questions. And listen, I want to be real. With anything that you do, even if you love it, you'll always have things that you hate, or just times in life where it's not going well, or it's going well, but it's very, it causes burnout. That's okay. But looking at the bigger picture, if you're not going to just wake up and be happy about what you're doing, just change it. And I've definitely never been afraid to change what I do. In my not many years in my career, it's only 16 years, I've been a translator, I've been a blogger, a journalist, an entrepreneur in different forms. So I definitely think, don't be afraid to change courses. And I'm not saying, like, I don't want to be blunt and say, like, throw it out to the wind. We're all living in the reality, and especially in 2021, where we need to be cautious and we need stability. But while you're doing something, if you're not enjoying it, you can always start a little thing on the side. You can always start something. And when it starts, in my opinion, when it starts from something that could help other people, a lot of times you'll find purpose and success early on.
Thank you so much, Edwa, and thank you for sharing your story with us. It's really been inspiring. I would now invite Malay Shukla, Associate Vice President, GUSEC, to give his concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you, Edwa, CEO and co-founder of Emerge, for sharing your entrepreneurial journey. It's so thrilled to listen to your journey, and I'm sure it will motivate many more aspiring women entrepreneurs. I also thank Mr. Yaakov, Israel's Consul General in Mumbai. Thank you, sir, for your presence and joining the summit and taking us through a remarkable role in women of women in Israel's history. India and Israel shares a strong bond of friendship, and we at GUSEC as well as Gujarat University look forward to play a significant role in achieving collective impact for a greater good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Min. I would like to thank all the dignitaries and speakers for their thought-provoking insights today. I'm also grateful to our wonderful audience for tuning in for our event. Stay tuned for our next panel discussion on the social impact through women entrepreneurship, which shall be headed by Mr. Peter Cook, the British Deputy High Commissioner to India. We will now disperse for a short break. Thank you for staying put, and I'll see you in the next session that begins at 3 p.m.
Thank you all. Thank you, Shedva, and thank you, Yako, for joining us. I hope to connect with you offline and take a conversation forward. But thank you so much for joining. I'm sure the attendees have gained a lot of insights into entrepreneurship as well as Israel's history basis today's session. See you all and take care.